So I don't know if this is, half of you will think that, wow, that is great. And the other half of you will be like, I'm disappointed because I'm aware of the time. And so I knew with 3 Torahs and everything that was going on and our beautiful B'nai Mitzvah, Banot Mitzvah today, that I would have a sermon that I could accordion, right? I can make it longer, I can make it shorter. And so I think I'm going to make it a little bit shorter. So I thought that the thing that struck me this week was that all of the political theater that went on downtown yesterday with the president of Ukraine and our president here. And so I thought, as a nod to Ukraine, not in a political sense, but that I would pick 3 famous rabbis from Ukraine and teach their teaching on the Parsha. Right? Now, these are big names. The Baal Shem Tov. Heard of them. Right? Heard of them? That's excellent. Right? Rav Nachman of Braslav. Heard of him. And we'll see if the Chazan, I didn't know we were gamifying this, but we'll see if he's 3 for 3. So Menachem Mendel Schneerson. Oh, a lot of people have heard of the Rebbe before, okay? So, and Schneerson, of course, comes from a long stream. The one that we know as the Rebbe, was the 7th in the dynasty. And not just the political theatrics of yesterday, but actually back in 2005, I had the opportunity to go to Ukraine, and it was fascinating. I mean, this is where collectively sort of our people come from, that area. So you ever walk into the grocery store and you're like, oh, I recognize that person, but you never have seen them before, but they just look somehow familiar? Well, when I was walking through Odessa and Kyiv, it was like that every turn. It looked like someone I knew from shul or something. And so there's the Jewish roots in Ukraine are deep, and there's the flip side as well. Because there was such a vibrant and strong Jewish community in Ukraine, when we get to the Shoah, it is said that 1 in 4 Jews that were murdered in Europe were in Ukraine. They were Ukrainian Jews, over 1 million Jews, and before the mass extermination in Poland. And so we have a very mixed relationship with Ukraine, but I think that I will pick Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson for our teaching. He was born on the Black Sea in what is now Ukraine. He's the leader of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, which was a very insular Hasidic group that almost came to an end because of the Holocaust, until they moved here to the United States, and then really, under his leadership and vision, transformed it into one of the most influential movements of religious Jewry, certainly of the last century. So here is the Rebbe's teaching on our Parsha Truma. And Mitchell, because he always asks me when I truncate something, here's the full version if you want to see it at Kiddush. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe provides a beautiful insight, and he's focusing on the menorah itself. That the menorah was intended to create light, but not simply utilitarian light for the tabernacle, right? Like turning on a light switch that you could just use. It was a spiritual light. It's a light that was to light the holiness which could be illuminated an otherwise dark world. Right? The menorah was meant to give a spiritual light into darkness. So the menorah symbolized man's sacred duty to create light through his dynamic spiritual activities, through what we do. And this light, in turn, drives away and dispels the darkness of evil and adversity. Our actions matter, he teaches. When we do a mitzvah, perform an act of chesed, learn Torah, or daven, pray with concentration, we create a light and drive away darkness. So the Rebbe points to a really interesting story that Rashi shares. Rashi comments that Moses didn't know how to make the menorah. I mean, he had all of the instructions of how to build everything else. And like I said before when we were reading the Parsha, right, there's so many details. But according to Rashi, that Moses had no idea how to build the menorah. That God tells Moses, just throw all the gold, what it was supposed to be the material, throw all the gold into the fire, and that God would make the menorah itself. Moses couldn't understand how the actions of an individual could impact the world. He didn't understand how a simple act could have global effect. And he didn't understand how the menorah worked. He was therefore unable to construct it. God tells him to do your part, and then God will do his part, her part, God's part. You do what is within your ability to create goodness and holiness, and God will harness that energy to combat the evil in the world. So you gather the gold or the spiritual material and give it to God. Throw it into the fire, if you will. And then God will create the mechanism through which we will move through the darkness. And the darkness is dispelled. And there are things in life that we don't understand, but we just have to believe that things will be better. There are many lessons to glean from the Rebbe's teachings. We don't always understand how everything works. We just have to find the courage to believe that it does work. Right? We just have to have the belief that by shining light on it, by us doing our individual, relatively small acts of goodness, that it will be amplified into the world and the darkness will be set aside. You have to just believe. I feel like I need to believe that is going to be for the benefit. Because right now it feels like there is a lot of darkness and I need to shine whatever glimmer of light that I can out into the world. And I don't even know how the big picture, how it actually works. I don't know how an isolated act of charity or of kindness, of learning, dispels the darkness, but I believe that it does. And knowing that it does is enough to spur me on to doing another act of kindness. But we are also taught that we don't have to do it alone. God tells us to take the gold of our dynamic spiritual endeavors and cast it into the fire of the divine, and God asks us to partner with God to do this. So my peace and your peace and your peace and your peace somehow add up to much, much greater than just the individual portions. And so we need to put that into effect, to deliver that effort into the hands of God, and because the results will be a bright world. So passions are everywhere, wrong and right, and overinflated sense of self, and hurtful words and actions are happening all around us. But maybe the learning today from the Ukrainian rabbis, what would have been the Baal Shem Tov and Rav Nachman of Braslov, but the one that I taught, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, is to control our passions and our urges and to find ways to bring light into the world and to channel these excessive passions into acts of goodness. That this is a good thing to be reminded of. So maybe I will doom scroll a little less this week. Focus on talking to my neighbors a bit more, going for walks more now that the weather has turned nice, and channeling my anxieties into acts of goodness for our community and the world. Shabbat Shalom.